Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hope. My name is Tammy Lynn Connors. This is my YouTube channel and podcast, helping other people evolve. Today, I have the wonderful Derick Gant with me.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to interview Derick. I've known Derick for, geez.
Stop counting.
Yeah,
Count.
a long time.
Count.
Time goes really quick. We're just going to go there, but blessed to know Derick, and I'm super excited to hear his story today. For those of you that don't know what Hope is and how I started this, is my mission and vision with Hope is to just help other people. It's called Helping Other People Evolve. And that reason for me starting this is because there's so many people I feel that are at home that feel like they're struggling all by themselves and nobody else has a problem like theirs. But we have solutions to those problems. And fortunately, I've been able to come to a better place in my life through that struggle and a strength. And Derick's got a story of maybe not like the hopes that we have on most of my podcasts, like a struggle, but he has built a business and he's just a great person, spiritually focused, and just really a great person in the city.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, so I'm super excited just to hear how Derick's life went and what made you become where you're at today.
Yeah, I'm excited to tell you. I have an interesting story for all of you that don't know. I'm a financial consultant, and we help people get out of debt, to fix their credit, to stop that crisis struggle, living check to check, being broke, losing your home, your cars. And interesting story that you probably never heard is that for, I don't know, maybe 20 years, I focused strictly on helping wealthy people become more wealthy.
Okay.
So as an investment guy, that's what you do. They give you money, you make them more money. And I always liken that story to the parables where Jesus was like, okay, you have the 3 guys, the talents, and the 1 multiplied it.
Right.
I'm like, yeah, that's me. I'm the multiplier. But one day I got sick. I had a blood clot, and it put me down, put me in the hospital for, I think 6-7 days.
Oh.
And while I was there, I had this conversation with God that I didn't ask him for it. It just started. And the conversation really went something like, well, what did you do with your life? Like, what have you done that's so great? I'm like, I've been waiting for this question, right? I'm the multiplier.
Right.
Your son's parable about the multiplier, that's me. I help people multiply. And so he's like, yeah, I know that. That's great. I appreciate that. That's awesome. What else did you do? And it really made me scared, scared. Like, wait a minute, that's not good enough. I thought that was great. I go to church. I'm a good dad. I'm a decent husband. I help thousands of people financially. This is a problem. So long story short, I made a commitment to figure out how to help people who needed help, not people who wanted help, right? Because if you have a couple $1 million and you want $1 million or 2 million too, you really don't have a problem.
Right.
You just want more.
Right.
Right. And so, but if you are going to lose your home, it's a whole different story. So that's how I started. Completely true story.
Wow.
How I started helping people that really, really need help, and they're in a crisis. I mean, I can't begin to tell you, how many people's marriages we're able to affect because they don't fight about money anymore.
Right. Yeah. That's huge.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, I
huge.
did not know that story.
It's not something that you share. I think I might have wrote about it in my book, but it's not something I share regularly.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Those conversations with God are real, huh?
I mean, I can't express the devastation that I thought all this goodness I had done. I mean, I started throwing in little things like, well, Lord, women get stuck on the side of the road. I see them trying to change a tire. I'll stop and help.
Right.
I've given money away to the homeless, and people who need, to stand on the corner. And he was like, and I was like, wait a minute, you keep shooting down everything that I'm telling you that I think is amazing.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, no, that's not gonna cut it.
That was humbling quick, wasn't it?
Very humbling,
Yeah.
And then I had to figure out how to help people with no money and not go broke.
Right.
So I had to figure that part out too.
Yeah. Well, how long have you had Gant?
Yeah, we've been investment advisors for well over 30 years.
Okay.
We started the company to help people get out of debt and the financial distress about 10 years ago. And so, I luckily didn't have to learn anything new. I was already an expert at money management. It was just the other end. And so, I knew what it took to get there. And so we just started applying those principles.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's good. Now you said you're a dad, so you have 2 sons. I know both your sons.
I have 2 adult sons.
Yes.
Yep. And they're good young men. They quasi practice what I preached all these years. So they do pretty good. My niece, though, it's always the girls. My niece is just killing it. She's 34.
Okay.
And she does everything that I've taught over the years. She does that. She's doing really well financially.
Good. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, when you're talking to people about their finances, I mean, that's got to be, for one thing, even for you to hear their stories, you're like, oh, right? You
Yeah.
know, it's hard when you hear those stories.
Well, it's like anything. Like, I can't imagine being a doctor or an ER doctor. I
Right.
couldn't take the pain. I definitely couldn't take a kid coming in injured or hurt. But the doctor is used to it.
Right.
So you get used to it, and doesn't mean that I'm desensitized to it. What it really means is that I know there's hope.
Right.
Right? No, being
Right.
serious.
No,
I know
you're
that
right.
there's hope. And that's the whole point of our interview is there hope? And what is that hope? And I know that after hearing thousands of all these crazy stories and scenarios of self-sabotage, because we do it to ourselves, how to help people fix it, if it's fixable. I mean, almost everything's fixable
Right.
if you're willing to change.
That was going to be my next
Yeah,
thing.
if you're willing to change, they're fixable. It just may take a little bit of time because you
Mhm.
didn't get in the mess overnight,
Right.
and you're not going to get out of the mess
Right.
overnight.
And that's a hard, especially feel like we live in such a microwave society that people are like, well, I want this fixed right now. And it's like, even with my sobriety, people will be like, well, yeah, but look at you. And I'm like, yeah, this is coming up on 20 years. It's been a lot of work.
A lot of work.
It's like this, overnight. And I didn't, it took me from the age of 11 when I started drinking till however old I was when I quit, 37 or whatever.
Right,
But yeah,
right.
it's not like a quick fix. And so I know with myself, even with, trying to help people through addiction and things like that, you just want to shake them like, well, if you just do this, if you just listen to what
Yes.
I'm saying,
Right. But the problem is that we all have grown up under a different track.
Correct.
Right? None of our railroads run along the same track. I mean, they might be similar, quasi-parallel, they veer off somewhere. So what comes easy for me does not come easy for someone else. Everybody thinks that I'm just love working out. Like, you're always in shape, you're always working out, you're posting the pictures of working out. I can't stand it. But I know the opposite, which is being unhealthy and dead.
Right.
Isn't that desirable? It's not as desirable as going to work out.
Right.
So I'm willing to do that. And I think that's where most people are, is that you're right. Like, everything is immediate gratification. It started with the microwave, right?
Right. Exactly.
Because even in the old days, you had to put your TV dinner in the oven.
In the oven for 25 to 30 minutes.
25 to 30 minutes versus 3 minutes.
Right. Right.
So, and it's just this mushroom, But yeah, we preach radical ownership.
Okay.
And it starts there. And it's the same thing, with everybody that you help. They made a decision.
Right.
Enough's enough.
Right.
I'm going to stop the madness.
Yes.
Right. And then they go out and they get help, and then things start to unfold. Right. Then they blossom and they flower.
Right.
Right.
Right. And I love that we just talked about that it doesn't happen overnight, because
Yeah.
people just need to know that, like, it's a work in progress, but if you keep doing it, you're going to get there, and you might stumble and you might fall a little bit, but if you just keep going and being consistent, we were just talking about consistency
Exactly.
before we got on here. So yeah. So I just want to touch a little bit. We talked a little bit about mental health. Only because I think that it's very important, and I think it's very important in men and women too, of course. But I feel like women we just talk about everything. We're good. Like, we're solid. We just talk more about everything.
Right.
There's not a lot of women, I don't think, that hold it in. I'm not saying that mental health in women, I'm not downgrading that, but I just know that men and mental health, and especially in your community,
Absolutely.
I've learned that it's really,
Yeah. Let me tell you a story about mental health.
Okay.
So during, I think it was 2007, 8, when the real estate market crashed, and the real estate market affected the entire market. I get paid based on investing in the marketplace. And so my kids were in school, and when I talk about my kids in school, I always say they have a lack of appreciation for higher education.
okay.
That's the politically correct way of saying they hate school.
Okay.
Right. And you got to twist their arm to get through it. And so I was struggling, like, really severely. Like, I felt like a failure as a dad because I couldn't get them to really dig into school. I was suffering at work because the markets were out of my control, but still suffering at work.
Right.
I get paid based on the revenue that we increase people's portfolios. So that there's no increase. It was going the other way. And so people are like, why am I paying you if I'm losing money? Right? So I had that. And then, my personal relationship was on rocky roads because of all the other things. And so you just felt like, you were just losing every, and for some of you listening, I know you have deeper, worse struggles, but these are real life circumstances.
Right.
As a parent, as a spouse, as a provider, as a consultant, if you figure you're losing on every front. And so, I kept that in. And I was talking to a friend of mine one day, and I was just sharing a little bit. And they were like, well, why don't you go talk to somebody? And I was like, men don't do that, and Black men really don't do that. What are you talking about? And so, we grit it out. And so he was like, yeah, you can grit it out right to the grave, right? Or to insanity or depression.
Right.
And so, I've always run to the gym for my stresses,
Right.
which is a great place to go, but it doesn't fix all ailments.
Right.
So I'll suffice to say that I went to therapy. And here's the cool part. When I decided to go, I go, do I know anybody that's a therapist? Right? Because what I didn't want to do was personally, and I'm sure most people feel the complete opposite. I didn't want to go to a complete stranger and have to start with ground zero to tell them I was a good guy going through a hard time, right?
Right.
Right. I didn't, because you got to explain everything.
Sure.
And so lo and behold, I knew one person and I'm like, I'm not sure. And then God dropped in my spirit that I knew this woman, a therapist, a doctor, from high school.
Oh, geez.
From high school. I went to school with her sons, and I adored her. Didn't really come to me that she was a therapist until I got to this position. I went and I scheduled an appointment with her. She absolutely adored me too.
Okay.
Right. She was the mom that used to bring chocolate chip cookies. And
Yeah.
I used to look out for her sons, when we played in different things. So she just adored me. I adored her. She bought food. I adore you. Right. So I went to see her. I'm telling you, we had 3 sessions and she just talking to someone. It was amazing.
Yeah.
So it's critical for everyone, but specifically the taboos of us to go out and get help and have a conversation. Even after that, I started talking to a cluster of my close friends about, and then you find out that all of you have the exact same drama.
Yeah.
Right. And the same challenge. It may be slightly different, but technically, kids aren't paying attention. My wife thinks I'm shit, so we had these same situations. You're like, oh my God, I'm not alone.
Right.
And that by itself kind of takes some of the pressure off and you go, okay, well, we can figure this out.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I love that you said that, just like we do this, because you're not alone, like in our struggles, right? But you said something that clicked with me, because you said my struggle might not be like all these other ones. And I did say that, your hope story is a little different. But my friend Chastity lost her husband in 22. And she talked about grief after that. And grief isn't just losing someone. Grief is a lot, and depression is a lot. It's like you said, your kids, your family, you lose your house, you lose your job. I mean, there's all kinds of different grief and mental health things that we have to deal with, so somebody's grief isn't like, I can't look at somebody that lost their home and be like, why are you grieving? I lost my son. You know what I mean? Because that's their grief. And so I think that that's important too. And I love that you said to talk to someone.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had friends call me, or I call them, and we'll have a complete conversation, and they'll talk the whole time if they call me. And then at the end, I'll say something. They're like, thank you so much. You just helped me. And I'm like, I didn't say anything. But great. I'm glad you got it all out.
Glad you're better.
And that's what I think is important too.
No, it really is. And we all want to be heard.
Yeah.
Right. At some level.
For sure.
And even when, in your silence, like guys are kind of quiet, and it's the old joke where you come home and you say, how was your day? And you say it was great. And the wife, you ask her how her day was. And, an hour later, you can go to the bathroom or something.
Right.
But the point is that, just having someone that you can confide in. And I'm not by any stretch of the imagination going, I'll just find somebody to talk to. Right. You need to be selective.
For sure.
Who you talk to. And if you do go to talk, if I come to talk to you and you don't let me say anything.
Right. Right.
Is that really helpful?
Right.
You know, so you have to be
Yeah.
careful of those people, or they have the answer. Sometimes you
Always
just need
the
to
answer,
listen, right?
Yes.
And so those people that think they have all the answers,
Right.
you know, you got to be careful of those.
Yeah. Yeah. I say God gave us 2 ears to listen and 1 mouth. So
100%.
why don't we just
There
listen
you
a little
go.
bit more?
There you
Everybody's
go.
always quick to respond
Yeah,
without, you know, letting
Yeah.
somebody else talk.
absolutely.
So yeah, so your business is flourishing. You
Business
kind of
flourishing.
laid back a little bit, you
Laid
said.
back a little bit. You know, my coming off of my conversation with God, let's call it, and I feel like we were able to fulfill that to a certain extent.
Mhm.
You know, I wrote a book called The 24K Life Code, The Only Difference Between Mediocrity and Greatness. And so the book encourages individuals to tap into their greatness so that they can then go out and help other people tap into their greatness. And we take the approach from a financial perspective, meaning that, you know, you do Thrive and you do Lavelle, and, you know, you say, hey, we just came out with this new service for food delivery from farm to table, which, you know, we all need farm to table,
Right.
right? And so you go, but how can you afford it?
Mhm.
Right?
Right.
Do you have the money for it? So we approach it from a financial perspective to help people figure out how to get their money game right. So then they can invest in their bodies and their fitness, and they can invest in their nutrition, and they can invest in courses and things to help them become better. And in the book, you know, I don't talk about, hey, this is how I was able to do this have this amazing life and create this lifestyle. It's more about, here's the habits
Mhm.
and the ideas and the proper tools to start the process, to be consistent in certain areas, to get your money right, to get your body right, to get your mind right. So it's kind of this basic, like, this is how people do it,
Okay.
right? Not just how I did it.
Right.
Because again, our tracks don't run
Right.
parallel.
Right.
So, but here's the rules to figure out how to get on your track going northeast.
Okay.
Right. So I'm a stock investment guy. So it's going to go that way,
Right.
but it's got to go up.
Up.
So we
Right.
got to go north
No, we're
and
not going,
forward.
we're not going southwest.
We're not going southwest. You can't go backwards.
Right.
So that's what the book is about. And so to your point, you know, as we stop meeting people one-on-one as much,
Mhm.
and we're still doing the social thing and trying to help people with videos and things, but we wrote the book so that we can reach even more people,
Mhm.
you know, so they can at least grab a hold of their life, like put the brakes on,
Yeah.
redirect, and then move in the right direction.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll put a link to your book in here too.
Cool. Yeah.
You know, when I launch the podcast. So yeah, so this has been great.
I enjoyed it.
I've enjoyed it. We've been trying to do it for a little while. That happens, finally did it. You know, it's always in the timing that it's supposed to happen,
Absolute
I
God's
think. And
timing. Yes.
I have to say that I'm 100% blessed to call Derick my friend.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Me
Because
too. Same here.
yeah, I reached out to him a few years ago, and it's just been a great friendship. So
It has.
I appreciate. I'm gonna get a hug.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Heather.
you. And I appreciate everybody getting on Hope today. And is there any last words you want to say to anybody?
Hey, take radical ownership for where you are and move forward.
Yes. Northeast.
Absolutely.
Don't go southwest. All right. You guys all have a great day. Thank you so much.